Welcome to today's forum. We have candidates from Ward 6 and Ward 7 in Biddeford. My name is Sam McReynolds. I'm a professor of sociology and the coordinator of the Office of Citizenship and Civic Engagement. And we've been sponsoring a series of fora to provide the people of Biddeford an opportunity to hear the candidates to express their ideas. And a novel idea this year is to engage UNE students who have formulated all of today's questions and will be our panel. So without further ado, I'd like to turn to our candidates for their introduction. Gentlemen, starting with you.
Yes, thank you. I want to thank UNE, Sam, and the students for the invitation to come over here and have a chat about the upcoming election. My name is Rick Laveria. I'm presently a council president. I've been on the council for 8 years, and I'm married, got two daughters, and my grandchild, 2 years old, and I'm a family man, and I enjoy very much and passionate about helping the citizens of the city of Biddeford.
Thank you. Mr. Reddy?
My name is Mike Reddy. I'm the current councilor for Ward 7, seeking re-election to that seat. Was appointed this term about 6 months into the term. The person that had been elected had to leave for job opportunity, and I was nominated by the mayor and then approved by the council. This is my second term as a councilor. Like Mr. Laveria said, I really enjoy the work. I enjoy working with the department heads of the city of Biddeford. We've got a lot of strength there, and I think we're looking at a real opportunity in the next couple of years to grow the city and to set us up for some real positive things in the near future. So thank you.
Thank you, gentlemen. Students, Tim, beginning with you.
My name is Tim Newell. I'm from Augusta, Maine, and I'm a senior biochemistry major.
My name is Melissa Klemt. I'm from Ellsworth, Maine. I'm a psych major. I'm a freshman, too.
My name's Danny Hoyt. I'm locally from Biddeford, and I'm a senior history and education major.
All right. The forum for today is that we have 7 questions we'll be asking our candidates. They'll have 3 minutes each with the 1-minute response, and although they are not running against each other, they'll have an opportunity to play off the other gentleman's comments, and then the students will be asking each of our questions, and we will rotate who begins each one. So, Tim, would you start with our first question?
The first question we'll start with Mr. Reddy. State support for Maine's communities has gone down, and the mill rate has increased as a result. What should Biddeford do to stabilize the tax rate? Should it cut services, expand the tax base, or both? What should the city cut, and how can it expand the tax base?
That's the million-dollar question. Certainly, you start off with the premise that the state is reducing budgets to the cities, and that's especially true in Biddeford. We take a huge cut a huge hit in the educational budget. As you know, a few years ago, the state had promised to fund education at 55%. City of Biddeford is now about 37%. Now, I know even at that time, there was no promise that each city would be getting 55%, but the state continually falling below that 55% even reduces ours more and more. One of the things we need to do, and I think that we're poised to move in that direction, is to really expand the tax base. I think we're looking at the downtown and the Mill District area as real opportunities for growth. We've got 1 million square feet of empty space down there that's ready for businesses, for housing, for all kinds of opportunity. Plus, we have now 8.5 acres downtown, right off of Route 1, on the river, that the city controls. It's to form a main energy site that I think will provide us a huge opportunity. So where can we cut? I don't know, because I think the other part of your question is exactly on point. Everything we reduce now is going to affect services. I think that was the thing that we really struggled with in this last budget. So I don't have any answers for what we can cut, because I don't believe that there are cuts to be made that are not going to affect services. And everybody has their service that they don't use. I don't need the fire department until I need them, and then I want them waiting there at the door for me to put out the fire or to react to an emergency. So the services are important in a city like Biddeford, and I really would hate to see them cut. I think the key is to expand the tax base, and I really think that we're we're on the verge of being able to do that.
Thank you. Mr. Leverrier?
Thank you, Tim. I think cutting services is a tough thing to do because, people get used to services they get, and they want taxes low, but they still want their service. So I think what the city needs to do is learn how to do more with less, keep the same services, but do it for less money. Be it, automating more stuff, like, a city clerk's office to register cars, not too very long ago, you had to go there to register, but now you can do it right online. So that helped reduce, like, I think 1 or 2 staff from what it used to be in city clerk's office. The other thing we could do is do more with our neighboring cities, do things together, which we've talked about in the past. We are doing a lot of things well with the city. We have fire departments help each other, public works departments help each other. And one of the things that's worked well is rather than all the cities, Bedford, Saco, and Orchard buying their own sewer cameras separately, they pitched in together, bought one sewer camera, one person takes care of it in a truck, and those 3 cities maintain that. So that type of thing would be very helpful. And as Mike alluded to, we've got to find a way to broaden our tax base, maybe the pilot programs, or have some nonprofits maybe pay a share, or there needs to be stuff. We need to find a way to be able to, that legally, that we're allowed to do to find revenues. Is it bringing up maybe fees or permits? I don't know what the answer is. I don't know what would be acceptable to the citizens, but definitely we need to do something, not cut services.
Thank you. Mr. Reddy, would you like to respond?
And Councilor Leverrier mentioned it. We happen to be the chair of the pilot committee, which is pilot stands for payment in lieu of taxes, something that UNE currently has an agreement with the city of Bedford that they contribute a certain amount each year. We're looking at all nonprofits to see if that's something that we should work with those nonprofits to try to come up with an agreement. One of the things that's true in the state of Maine is we can't enforce a pilot on any individual agency. So we can't go to UNE and say, here's how much you're going to pay. It would be a negotiated thing. But right now we're working through these issues, and we've also sent some information to the leadership at UNE and Southern Maine Medical Center, which are the 2 biggest nonprofits in this city, to see also what kind of opportunities they're providing to the citizens of Bedford. What do the UNE students, what does the UNE facility help us with, help the city of Bedford with? What do they provide that we don't have to pay for? So those, we may not end up, because I hear people saying that this pilot is going to raise all kinds of money, and that may not be the case. It may be that these 2 agencies are providing so many services to the citizens of Bedford that there is no more money to be asked from them. But that's something that we're working on right now.
Thank you. Mr. Leverrier, would you like to respond?
Yeah, I'm just going to add one other thing that, especially this past year, our governor took revenue sharing dollars away. So for Bedford, there was some change. I mean, the legislature went and returned some of it, but for the city of Bedford, it netted between $800,000 to $1 million of lost revenue. That has a huge impact on the mill rate and the taxes. So, stuff like that. We don't need that extra help.
Thank you.
If I could, sorry, I just wanted to comment, Councilor Leverrier reminded me of something. One of the things I looked at, as I used to be on the school committee years ago, is communities that are similar to ours. And Sanford, in my mind, is a community that's almost a mirror to us. The population is the same. When we look at school population, they're pretty close. When we look at the free and reduced lunch population, they're pretty close. When we look at the pay rates in those communities, they're pretty much the same. And yet, Sanford gets $10 to $12 million more in education funding from the state than we do. So we start $10 million in the hole from those communities. That's a real factor. People sometimes miss that, but that's a real factor. We need to raise $10 million on our own to get to the same level that a community like Sanford, who is very much like ours, gets to.
For question 2, it's about the infrastructure, and we'll start with Mr. Leverrier. What are the major infrastructural problems in Biddeford, and what should the city do to correct the problems in the infrastructure?
Thank you. Melissa, I believe it is? We have some problems in infrastructure, no doubt about that. The roads are in very poor shape, and our city buildings, the good thing is this building doesn't need work. It just got a whole face over, so this building's in good shape. But yeah, there are some issues. Part of the problem is between what happened with tax, in order to keep the tax and the mill rate down, because we just went through the full impact of the school renovation, so that brought up the taxes by quite a bit. So in order to keep the taxes as low as possible, the council chose not to put any dollars into road repairs. But on the other hand, what we wanted to do is go out for bonding, which we went out a couple times and they didn't pass. The difference is with a bonding, if you put $1 million for roads, infrastructure repair, in part of the budget, it's 42 cents on the mill rate. But if we do bonding, let's say we bond $3 million in a bond, it's 9 cents on the mill rate. $5 million bond is only 12 cents on the mill rate. That's the difference. You could do a lot more that way than a 42 cents mill rate increase. So I think we have to look more at that, more ways to do it with bonding. It doesn't increase much of the indebtedness to the city, because as we get bonds, we pay off bonds. So I think, to me, that's the way to do it. But we haven't been very successful at getting bonds approved for that as of late.
Thank you. Mr. Reddy?
And I agree with Councilor Laveria. I think the bonding method is the smartest way to go. We had tried to do it a couple of years ago, and really you can get a lot more bang for your buck than putting it in the budget. But as you said, we haven't been successful. I think we need to make sure that there is at least a fail-safe in the budget, that there's a certain amount of money in there to do a certain amount of work. One of the things we face is Biddeford's involved in one of the communities that's involved in PACS, which is a coalition of communities from Portland south to Kennebunk. And we get funding at some points for some major thoroughfare work. There's always a match, whether it's 5% or 10%. And there are some projects that we look at that we can't afford to match because we don't have the money in the budget. So we need to somehow start putting money back into the budget. And I'm not blaming anybody because I voted to take it out of the budget. I voted to try to go out to bond. But at this point, we've failed the last 2 times, and probably before that too, in bonding. So we've got the roadway, we have the roof at the community center that needs to be done. I mean, that's city property. The building is in good shape, but we need to be able to maintain it. We also have, which is a huge problem, and we need to address it sooner than later, is the clock tower over the city hall. It's a historical building. That's part of the history of Biddeford. We need to be able to maintain that, and we need to somehow get it into the budget, at least beginning the process. We're not going to be able to solve the problem. This is something that's been going on for years, where even the years where we funded it, we underfunded what we could do. So it needs to be put into the budget.
Thank you. Mr. Lavier, would you like to respond to that?
Yeah, I just got to add a little bit. The reason why some of these things haven't been put in the budget, like I said before, because of the way the economy's been. And again, the school renovation project was a $34 million project. That in itself raised the taxes in quite a bit. And people voted for it, and they understood that. But because of the times the way we are, a lot of things were left out, and we kept the stuff that really was needed, and we kept, pushing it forward. Now we really need to do it. Again, as I stated, like the roads, I think the price tag was somewhere around $1.5 or $1.7 million to do that clock tower. If that's the case, if we bond that, you're talking maybe, 10 cents on the mill rate. To me, that's worth it. We got to get it done, because even taking it down, a lot of people say take it down, that's going to cost about $500,000 to do that. So there's money there that needs to be paid one way or the other. And I'd rather pay the $1 million or $1.5 million to get it restored. And that's our history right there.
Thank you. Mr. Reddy?
And the only thing I'll disagree with, Councilor Laveria said it twice, and it's not true. We did not put the $34 million for the high school onto the mill rate. The year that bond came due, the year that we first started paying that bond, the council at the time, and I'm not criticizing them because they made a budget decision, but the budget was a flat budget, including the first payments of that $34 million. When people went out to vote, if you notice on referendums that are financial impacts, there's a statement on there that says how much this will be on your mill rate. And it said, and I believe it was 92 cents, this will be 92 cents on your mill rate when it becomes effective. People voted overwhelmingly for that. I think it was 85% or something like that. So it was an overwhelming vote, and it was a pretty good turnout. So it wasn't like, 100 people went and they decided this for the whole city. So people did vote knowing what that impact would be. When it came time for that to hit the budget, that year there was a zero impact on the budget. There was a zero increase in the mill rate. So putting that onus onto that building is not correct. I believe, and it's easy for me to say, I wasn't on the council at the time, but there should have been, here's what we voted for, here's the impact, and we continue to operate the city. I think we would have been a little bit better ahead, but that's caused us to be where we are today.
Thank you.
I just want to add one thing, if I may, that when I said the mill rate today includes the full impact of that $34 million, I didn't mean, a few years ago, I meant this mill rate we have right now, my belief is the full amount of that $34 million bond is in the mill rate. And if not, it's probably pretty close to it.
Thank you.
Our third question is in regard to the parking garage. The argument has been made that the parking garage will enhance the development of downtown business and that it's a waste of public funds that will only benefit a few private owners. Do you believe the parking garage is necessary? Do you support or oppose the building of a parking garage downtown? We'll begin with Mr. Reddy.
I absolutely support parking garage in the Mill District in the downtown area. What needs to be stated is that there currently is no agreement with anyone on a parking garage. We don't have a plan to go forward at this time with a parking garage. There is still work to be done. But I think to say that it would only benefit a few people is totally incorrect. We've had businesses, since I've been on the council, approach the economic development director and looking for opportunities because the space is there. Like I said before, there's 1 million square feet of space in that Mill District downtown area available. They wanted to bring businesses or downtown, but they don't have any parking for 300 employees. You can't bring a business downtown or in the Mill District if you have no place for them to park. And I think, and I've said it to people down many times, if you think that the downtown Biddeford area is all that it can be, if you think what we have right now is the best that we can do, then you're right, we don't need parking. But I believe that there's a whole lot more that can be done. I think there's a whole lot more opportunity down there, and I think that a parking garage would benefit the whole city because it would drive I think business opportunities down in that area and would help the tax base. I mean, that's one of the ways to increase the tax base. So I think that businesses and people living downtown would benefit from the parking garage. Also, the other thing that's kind of missed in the discussion about the parking plan is we had what we thought was pretty close to a parking garage proposal that the council was going to consider. It did not put any money on the tax rate. It was paid for by the TIF, which is clearly legal because it benefits that downtown area where the TIF district is, and it was also going to be paid by the revenues. But we have people that were ready to step up, that were ready to lease, as much of that space as we would allow them. So we could have been pre-leased on most of those spaces in the parking garage before it was open. So it was not going to put any money on the tax rate at all.
Thank you. Mr. Leverrier?
Yes, thank you. I totally agree with Councilor Reddy, what he's saying. We have some buildings, apartments being built, it's going to be started, I think, in the spring, that they've already paying the city for parking spaces. They've already indicated as part of the whole agreement. 70 places already. That's just one building being renovated. I do support the garage, the parking garage, but what I don't support is putting it on the mill rate, on the tax base. I think it could be, I support it as long as it's self-funded by, fees to park there, but I do not. And if there were ever a time where would have to go on a tax base, I would support going out to referendum and let the people decide if it was going to be on the tax rate. But I personally do not support it if it's going to be on the tax rate. If it's going to be self-supported, I fully agree with it. Part of the problem is years ago, it was like 3,000 people working there, I would imagine, probably more. A lot of people walked to work. You didn't need all the cars, didn't have all the cars. But today, everybody brings a car. So you're going to have quite a bit of people going there in that area, no place to park, because there's a lot more cars out there now than there was in those days. So there is an issue, and we actually could use building, starting to build it now to get ready for the year or two that we're going to have the increase of businesses. But I support it.
Thank you. Mr. Reddy, anything
Yeah, I think
additional?
one of the part of the proof that there is a need there is, as Councilor Very talked about, one of the businesses, one of the apartment buildings down there. We're going to have temporary parking, or the plan right now is to have temporary parking on the main energy site while we're doing the investigation and request for proposals on what that space is to be used for. I think that would be a horrible waste of space to keep that there. That's too valuable a piece of property to be putting, surface parking. But I think right now it gives us a little bit of opportunity to kind of bridge the gap until we're able to come up with a plan that works for parking garage. But I think parking garages certainly would benefit all of the downtown and Mill District area, not just a few people.
Thank you. And Mr. Leverrier, anything else to add?
I think Council already has hit upon everything that I agree with.
Okay.
This next question will start with Mr. Leverrier. It has been indicated that there is a growing need for workforce housing in Biddeford. Do you support the development of workforce housing in Biddeford in general, and specifically in downtown Biddeford?
Yes, I do. I think, it's going to take these buildings that right now, they're taxed at the lowest possible revenue right now. You put these buildings in there and renovate these buildings and have some nice, but if nobody has seen the apartments that get, when they get made, these things are beautiful. And the workforce housing that's what is going down there anyway. A lot of, people can work right there. And so, yes, I support it, and I think it's a great thing to do with some of these buildings.
Thank you. Mr. Reddy?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think the word that you used is the right word, workforce housing, because I think there's a real difference in workforce housing, low-income housing, and people get those mixed up and are really confused about what we're talking about. Workforce housing, I mean, for a lot of you guys, when you get out of school, that's the kind of housing that you're going to be able to afford. It's decent, safe housing, and I mean, it's not, you have to have a job to get into workforce housing. These people, have a minimum requirement before they can get into these places. We saw a place, we took a tour of the mill at Saco Falls, and there is workforce housing right next to market rate housing. I mean, you have doctors living in there, and you have students living in there, or you have people that have just gotten out of school living in there. This is not housing that's slum housing. This is very well taken care of, very well managed property, and I think the people in there are really a mix of what Biddeford is. I mean, it's a mix of everything, and the housing, like I said, is safe and affordable housing. It's not low-income housing. I think they had said out of the 48 people that worked there, there was one person that was unemployed. And at this time, in the economy that we're in, one person out of 48 is much better than certainly the national and state average. And there were a few retired people, but everybody else there works. So I think it's important that that type of housing is available in Biddeford. And that's the kind of housing that we're talking about in the downtown area. It's workforce and market rate housing together.
Thank you. Mr. Leverrier, would you like to respond?
Yes, I would like to add one other thing. Is part of the reasons why I think there's going to be more of a need for workforce housing is, people getting laid off that were making good amounts of money. Well, they get back in the workforce, they're not making the same money, so they can't, and I'm unable to stay in the higher end apartments or housing for that matter, houses. They had to sell their homes or get in, kind of shrink down, to what they were making. And this is where I think this workforce housing would play a huge role in that. And they're nice.
Thank you. Mr. Reddy?
And the other thing is, and especially when we're talking about the Mill District area, because that's where we talked about workforce housing, is we're not talking about that whole 1,000,000 square feet becoming housing. That would be wrong. That wouldn't be the mix that we're looking for. And that's the key word. We're looking for a real mix of housing, retail development, small manufacturing. I mean, some of what's already existing in the mill area, just expanding throughout that whole footprint.
Thank you.
This next question is in regards to the casino, and we'll begin with Mr. Reddy. Recently, a state panel on a vote of 10 to 8 recommended the expansion of gambling in Maine. Those in support of it believe it will expand jobs and increase funding for the city. Those opposed say it takes advantage of low income, and the only people making a profit off of it will be the casino owners. Do you support revisiting the idea of having a casino in Biddeford?
Well, we don't have anybody that's come to us with a plan or a proposal. And I think that would be the first thing, is I think that anybody that comes to the city of Biddeford with any kind of real plan or proposal, we need to look at it completely. But I think we need to also understand that there are impacts past the initial jobs and past the initial tax revenue that's there. We need to balance that with what the negatives are. And I think there's plenty of documentation that there are negatives there. In my mind, it would be what the plan is, because I think as we would with any business, we would have to be clear on what the city of Biddeford stands to gain from this, and B, where it is. I mean, I was not involved in the negotiations that went on the last time, so I don't know exactly what the give and take was, but I'm not sure that the location that we had chosen the last time was really going to benefit the city of Biddeford. To me, it would have been people getting off the turnpike, going to this casino, Racino, and then getting back on the turnpike. So I think the benefit, certainly to the downtown, which is what I had heard there would be minimal. So it really depends on the plan. I think we would be foolish to say blanket statement that we would not consider it. I think we need to consider any real plan that comes to the city of Biddeford, but I think we need to give this the same scrutiny that we would any other plan.
Thank you. Mr. Lavier?
Thank you. 2 years ago, there was a proposal that came, which included a Racino, it included the racetrack, Scarborough Downs was going to move to Biddeford, and it also included an entertainment type facility. It was and a hotel. And I supported it then, and I would support it now. I think a lot of jobs would come in. I mean, we have Market Basket that just moved in, which netted quite a few jobs. More jobs came in than what was lost with Lowe's. But I think the tax rate alone, a mill rate, would be a huge benefit to the budget. So I do support it. And again, before I would give it my 100% blessing, I want to know what kind of deal we get and what would the city, what revenues we would gain by it.
Thank you. Mr. Reddy, would you like to comment?
And you have to look at the whole picture, because there's a certain amount of revenue, excuse me, that comes from the taxes. But you also, certainly in the case of the city of Biddeford, we lose a lot of revenue sharing from the state. We lose 65% of every dollar we gain in taxes from educational standpoint. We're only getting 35% on our dollar for education. And then what are the impacts? What other infrastructure needs are we going to have? We're going to have to provide more police presence. We're going to have to provide more safety presence. I'm not sure. The other thing that I'm not sure about, and again, I wasn't in negotiations, Councilor Oliveria was the last time, but I don't know, I'm not sure of the job numbers. I've heard anything from 500. I hear that there's a candidate out there now saying there would be 1,800 jobs. I don't know how large of a facility we would have to provide 1,800 jobs. So, I mean, to get that kind of information, I would really need to sit down and understand what the whole proposal is. It's easy to say, that's something we should go after. I think we should absolutely look at it, just like we should absolutely look at any proposal that comes to us in the city of Bedford.
Thank you.
Yep.
Mr. Laverrier?
Yeah, I agree with what he says. I mean, it's hard to say you're going to support it 100% until you see what's in front of you and what you got coming. But and I have to correct you, Councilor, is that I was not part of the negotiation last time. I just fully supported it with the then mayor, but I was not part. There was really no negotiation, I don't think, with any of the council.
Okay.
And just, we knew what they had presented to us at the time, and, but I do support it.
Thank you.
The next question is in regards to the airport. We'll begin with Mr. Laverier. Do you believe the airport should be closed, remain as it is, or expanded? If you choose to close, then what should be done with that space? If you choose to expand it, how should it be expanded?
I do support the airport. I think it's got a huge benefit to the city. I think the ones that are not supporting it say it doesn't help a lot of people. It's just, you know, a few handful of pilots. But there are some businesses using it. I think there's one business that has 2 planes. And they would, one of them, they can't park there because it's a 12-seater, it's too big, and the other one they keep there. But yes, I think it's a huge benefit to the city, and it's very much an asset. As far as expanding it where it is, I would not support expanding it where it is. If we were to move the runway or somewhere else or align it a different way, I could probably support expanding it. But right now, I would support maintaining it the way it is and at a safe level, which we just can't let it deteriorate and not do anything. If we're going to have it, which I believe we should, we need to keep it up to date.
Thank you. And Mr. Reddy?
Yeah, I'm not sure about whether the airport is economically viable or not. When I was on the council last time, about 6 years ago, I fully supported the airport with no reservation. I'm a little more hesitant now. And we're trying to come up with the real numbers, trying to get as unbiased a look at it as we can as far as what the economic benefit to the city of Bedford is. One of the things we realize is that we're kind of in between 2 pretty good-sized airports. Sanford has a decent-sized airport that can bring in planes that are a lot bigger than what we can bring in, and certainly Portland Jetport. But when you look at the closing it, I mean, Councilor Rivera just had some senior staff people in the city of Bedford look at like what the impact of closing would be. And we're looking at $2.3 million. That's if we can use the land for its best use. So I'm not at the point today where I would vote to close it because we don't have all the information we need. But I'm not sure. I hear a lot of talk about the economic impact of it, but it's hard to define it. We're trying to get those numbers now. I think the Bedford Airport needs to be, as long as it's open, we need to maintain it. I think there's some real concerns that I have about our liability if there's some kind of an accident there and we haven't maintained it. So I think no matter what we do, until we make that final decision, we need to step up and maintain it the way it should be so that it's a safe airport. But I think we're still in the discovery phase of what we need to have to make the final decision. There's economic data out there that we need to put together along with the information that Councilor Laveri was able to get about, you know, what the impact on closing would be. So I'm certainly not supporting expansion of the airport, but I'm not at the point where I could say we need to close it either.
Thank you. Mr. Laveri, any additional comments?
Yeah, I just want to make it very clear. I'm not supporting expanding the airport. What I'm saying is, the question was, would you support expanding it even if it was somewhere else, or what would you do? You know, I would support if it was moved, not in the present location. You know, do a more regional airport, you know, maybe someplace where there's more land available, not a lot of buildings. But the fact is, the airport was there a lot sooner before than some of the buildings and some of the industrial park was there. But I do support it, but we need to maintain it, as Councilor Reddy says. If we're going to have it there, which I think it serves a purpose, we need to make sure it's safe.
Thank you. And Mr. Reddy?
I'm all set. Thank you.
For this question, we'll start with Mr. Reddy. UNE is an increasingly important economic and social contributor in Biddeford. What do you believe could be done to better integrate UNE and the city of Biddeford?
I think there's a lot being done on a small scale. I know that there are, like I sit on Solid Waste Committee, I think Councilor Laveri has in the past. We've had a UNE student that's been, you know, an active participant in that for quite a while. I know that in the past, there have been UNE students that have been involved in the schools also. I think we need to have probably a more defined thing. I think we need to get together with our superintendent, with the city manager, and with the senior staff at UNE to see what opportunities there are. Because I don't think that the city of Biddeford takes advantage of some of the facilities and things that UNE has to offer. And I'm not sure that UNE takes full advantage of what the city has to offer. So I think communication is really the biggest thing, I think, to get it going. I know that there is, I think city manager has a pretty good relationship with some of the key people at UNE, but I think we need to do it on maybe a more defined role, almost like a, whether we have monthly meetings or something, because there's a tremendous amount of resources down there with the students and the staff and faculty there, and I think there's a lot of opportunity for interaction that we're not taking advantage of right now.
Thank you. Mr. Leverrier?
Yes, thank you. I think Biddeford, UNE and the city of Biddeford, I think do quite a bit together now. I mean, they really complement each other, really do. I think UNE is a huge asset to the city. I think what I'd like to see, and I'm not sure if this has been tried in the past, the fire department has 3 ambulances. One they keep on the road and one's a spare. I would like to see that spare ambulance up at UNE. So if there's a call in that area, it takes quite a while for the ambulance to get from in town up there. That could be manned by UNE students, and when the call comes in that area, we get somebody there a lot quicker, even if it's, defibrillation or that type of thing to keep them going. And we still send an ambulance there, but, I think it could have a huge impact on the residents over there. That's the kind of thing I think that could be helpful.
Thank you.
Any follow-up comments?
No,
Okay. One of the things I neglected at the beginning was to give you your 3 minutes opening statement, and you get a 2-minute closing statement. So I'm going to put those together and give you a whopping 5 minutes each, where you may cover other topics that we haven't addressed that you think the voters should have information on. And so we'll give you the 5 minutes in one combined swoop. And let's see, who are we starting with here?
Mr. Leverrier.
So, do
Thank
take
you.
5 minutes?
Yep. I thank you, UNE, I thank Sam, I thank the students, and I really thank Councilor Reddy for, I think it was a good discussion, and I do have a lot of respect for Councilor Reddy. I am looking to get reelected. I've served 8 years, 2 years as council president. I've been on a lot of the committees. I mean, I've got proven leadership on, I've been chair of finance, chair of personnel, I was chair of capital projects for 5 years. I enjoy what I'm doing, and I think what you see is what you get. I mean, I made some of the tough decisions, and closing Maine Energy was a tough decision where the job lost, but it was an easy decision and the right decision for the city of Biddeford. And I look forward. I would ask for your help in re-electing me to the council for Ward 6, to represent Ward 6 again.
Who's ready?
yeah, and I also, this is a great opportunity to represent people in Ward 7. I think one of the things that I try to do is when people reach out, when they have issues, is to respond to them as quickly and as thoroughly as I can. One of the things that I think really the opportunity that we have is to be able to interact pretty closely with the department heads and be able to get answers for people in the community, and I think that's important. The other thing I did want to address, Councilor Leverrier brought it up with the Maine Energy thing. There's still a lot of misinformation about what happened there, and I think it's pretty clear Maine Energy was going to be leaving. The concern that I personally had, and I think a lot of councilors had, is that they were not just going to walk away, that they were going to sell that to another business that either did the same kind of thing they did, or we had even heard that there was a company who was interested in purchasing it that did construction and demolition debris. The same kind of issues that we've been dealing with for 20-something years, we would continue to deal with. The major impact of the purchase of the Maine Energy site falls on the TIF. And also we have the cell towers that are still on the stack that are providing revenues to help pay for that. I still say 8.5 acres in a downtown area right off of Route 1 on the river is worth something. And I think it provides us with a tremendous opportunity going forward. And I think that's probably one of the biggest challenges that the next council or the next two councils is going to face is what do we do with that? It's not the kind of property where you just put up a for sale sign and, you know, then you take bids. I think our Economic Development Director, Dan Stevenson, is working on a request for proposal, but this is a nationwide process. And we've talked to developers that have come into the city of Biddeford and said, you know, and I look at them as probably large developers, and they said, this is too big a project for us. So I think that's the kind of opportunity that I see. That's what really drove us, I think, to acquire that property, to be in control of that property. And I think that's one of the things that sometimes is missed in this whole thing. Councilor Very talked about it. As far as I'm concerned, the only downside of that was the fact that there were jobs lost, but they were closing anyway. And we don't know what kind of opportunity there would have been for any of those people to stay on. The other thing is the taxes, Maine Energy closing, most of that tax revenue would have gone away anyway, even if another company came in. Unlike most businesses, Maine Energy was taxed on what their contracts were. They have contracts with, I forget how many different communities in the area to provide that trash service. Their property tax was based on not only the property, but it was based on the contracts, which most other businesses aren't taxed that way. So that was going to go away anyway. So there is an impact on the budget. Most of it comes from the loss of taxes, but we're, I believe, able to access the sudden and severe tax loss from the state, and we were able to recoup about 50% of that. So I think that the opportunity certainly outweighs the disadvantage of taking that property. Thank you.
Gentlemen, we thank you very much for your time and your answers today. Students, thank you for your time as well. And the public, we hope you appreciate the time the gentlemen put in today and for the City Council. And with that, we end our forum. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.